Hey there, before we dive in, don't forget to follow S News to catch this and all our future videos. Seriously, your support means a lot, so please subscribe, like and drop us a comment. It helps more than you know. The Middle East on the brink of all-out war. The region is teetering on the edge as Iran, Israel, Hamas and Syria spiral into a dangerous escalation. Iran has officially threatened to withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, a bold move, honestly, that could trigger a global confrontation and undo years of painstaking diplomatic efforts. But Iran didn't stop there. It also declared its readiness to return to war, and just like that, rapidly resumed its uranium enrichment program, despite international warnings. In response to Iran's increasingly reckless actions, the United States and Israel quickly made statements indicating they're ready to restart military operations against Iran if necessary, with no diplomatic restraints. Meanwhile, tensions continue to rise. Israel announced that if key hostages are not returned, the gates of hell will be opened and a full military solution will be put into action. Hamas responded with an initial reply to a 60-day ceasefire proposal, but showed no signs of compromise. Both sides remain locked in a fierce battle of wills, hour by hour, minute by minute. In a surprising twist, the interim government of Croatia suddenly asked Turkey for defensive support, a move that could further inflame the region and drag a wider military alliance into yet another round of conflict. Yesterday, a senior Iranian official warned that European threats to reinstate sanctions could force Iran to pull out of the international nuclear agreement. This warning came just 2 days before new talks are set to begin between Iran and the so-called E3 group, Europe's main negotiators, over the controversial nuclear program.
There's strong public support in Iran for withdrawing from the NPT, especially after last month's hostile attacks by the United States and Israel on Iran's nuclear facilities. Although Iran has strictly adhered to the treaty since joining it in 1970, if Europe triggers the mechanism to reimpose international sanctions, we would no longer be able to hold back from leaving the agreement. The upcoming talks scheduled for May 25th in Istanbul with the European trio are extremely important. However, the outcome will depend entirely on how Europe approaches the negotiations. I am one of the deputy foreign ministers representing Iran in those talks.
Iran's foreign minister, Kamjaribadi, told reporters in Tehran about the strong public sentiment and the high stakes surrounding the upcoming negotiations. Last week, the three major European powers, Britain, France and Germany, warned that they would activate a UN mechanism to reimpose sanctions on Iran if no new deal is reached by May 31st. The UN had lifted sanctions after Iran and the P5+1, the United States, UK, France, Russia, China and Germany, reached the historic nuclear agreement in 2015, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. But when President Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the deal in 2018, the Iranian nuclear issue once again took center stage globally. Iran says it is ready to return to war and will continue producing enriched uranium.
President Mas stated that Iran does not seek nuclear weapons, but will keep enriching uranium in line with international law. In an interview, he stressed that Iran has completely abandoned any pursuit of nuclear weapons, calling it a political, religious, humanitarian, and strategic decision. Still, Iran intends to continue its uranium enrichment on its own territory.
When asked about Donald Trump's statement that Iran should never be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons, an Iranian official, Mr. Bekin, agreed, but said that claims the nuclear program was dismantled are false. He added that the program remained in the hands of scientists, not facilities. He stressed that any negotiations over Iran's nuclear future must consider the interests of all sides and that threats against Iran are unacceptable.
Earlier, on May 21st, Iranian Prime Minister Abbas Adashi said Iran's nuclear facilities had suffered heavy damage from Israeli and United States attacks in June. But he also made it clear that Iran would not abandon its uranium enrichment program, calling it a major scientific achievement and a matter of national pride. He made the comments during an appearance on Fox News. Finally, the official noted that Iran is open to negotiations with the United States, but only under fair and respectful conditions.
No direct talks for now, but Iran is open to cooperation. Iran has made it clear there won't be any direct communication with the United States at this point. Still, an Iranian official mentioned that if the United States wants a deal, there could be a mutually beneficial solution. Iran stands ready to cooperate and take any necessary steps to build trust, showing that its nuclear program is peaceful, and that it has no intention of developing nuclear weapons. In exchange, Iran expects sanctions to be lifted. Since early 2025, Iran and the United States have held 5 rounds of talks, but honestly, nothing concrete has come out of them. In June 2025, the United States launched airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites following an Israeli military operation just the week before. Both countries have warned that they're prepared to resume military actions against Iran if needed.
Israel is seriously considering military action to stop Iran's nuclear and missile programs.
U.S. President Donald Trump stated earlier that the United States will continue targeting Iran's nuclear facilities if it becomes necessary.
After Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Adashi confirmed that our facilities were damaged in previous U.S. strikes, Trump posted on social media that the damage was extensive and warned the United States would strike again if needed.
On May 22nd, a high-level meeting was held between Israeli defense officials and military leaders. Attendees included the Chief of Staff, his deputy, intelligence officials, and members of the Internal Security Service, Shin Bet. During the meeting, the defense minister emphasized the need to maintain Israeli air superiority, especially after Operation Rising Lions, and called for a comprehensive plan to stop Iran from reviving its missile and nuclear programs. At an Air Force graduation ceremony in July, the same minister issued a direct warning to Iran, saying Israel's Air Force could reach targets across Iran, from Tehran to Isfahan and beyond.
Israel has warned that the gates of hell will open if Hamas does not release hostages.
I'm expected to meet Israeli officials in Italy on May 24th to push forward a proposal to pause hostilities.
Although the two sides have narrowed their differences, talks remain stalled. Hamas responded to a 60-day truce proposal, but Egyptian and Qatari mediators have asked Hamas to offer a more flexible position. According to regional sources, Hamas is split between factions, one open to compromise, the other determined to stick to a hardline stance for internal unity.
Let me be clear, hell will break loose if the hostages aren't released.
Hamas accused Israel of destroying Gaza's Casa del Campo area and warned that further escalation would follow if the deal isn't extended. Tensions have also grown between Israel and international humanitarian organizations. Israel accused the United Nations Humanitarian Office of links to Hamas and increased security checks on its staff. It has also expelled a United Nations coordinator from the West Bank, claiming obstruction. On May 23rd, the National reported that Hamas sent a preliminary response to mediators regarding a ceasefire and prisoner exchange. Hamas agreed in principle to the 60-day ceasefire, which would allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, especially through the Rafah crossing. It also accepted most of Israel's proposed troop withdrawal maps, but demanded full withdrawal from central and southern Gaza. Hamas is now reviewing the latest proposal with other resistance factions, and a final reply is expected soon. The ceasefire deal would include a prisoner swap and the delivery of aid. US envoy Koop is expected in Europe on May 24th, followed by a visit to Qatar the next day. So far, Hamas hasn't provided a final list of the Palestinian prisoners it wants freed. The list may include high-profile prisoners serving long sentences like Bakuti, a top Fatah figure once seen as a successor to Mahmoud Abbas. Hamas is also expected to ask for the release of 10 Israeli hostages and the remains of 18 people who died in captivity. Earlier, Hamas proposed releasing hostages in phases during the ceasefire to ensure Israel sticks to the deal, but Israel rejected that plan and offered an alternative. The broader proposal includes long-term ceasefire talks and a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza camps. Hamas is demanding US guarantees for continued negotiations until a permanent truce is reached, but sources say that demand might be dropped. Israel insists the war won't end until Hamas's military and operational capabilities are wiped out and all hostages are freed. Israel has also demanded that Hamas disarm and that its leaders go into exile. Hamas rejected the disarmament demand, but said it's open to storing weapons under international supervision during a long-term truce. It also agreed to exile its leaders, under the condition that they and their families are not targeted.
With Israel escalating its airstrikes, Syria's interim government has formally asked Turkey for defensive support to help fight terrorism.
Turkish defense sources say Ankara is expanding military training, tech support and strategic advising to Syrian forces, marking a major shift in their bilateral relationship. In Syria's Suwayda province, clashes between local tribes and a militia group known as Grossa escalated into a sectarian crisis. In response, Israel launched airstrikes on Syrian army positions in Lebanon to protect the Grossa group, further fueling tensions. A US-brokered ceasefire from March 19th collapsed just hours after Syrian government forces pulled out.
I'm now negotiating a new ceasefire that includes establishing a Turkish military base inside Syria.
Turkey is also pushing to integrate the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, into its national army, despite previous tensions. Although this plan stalled due to internal conflicts, Turkey still considers the SDF a terrorist group because of its ties to the PKK. However, Ankara is willing to cooperate under a controlled framework. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu warned Syrian armed groups against using the chaos to demand autonomy, calling it a direct threat to Turkish national security. Relations between Turkey and Israel remain tense, especially after an attack by the Turkestan Islamic Party on several Syrian cities in April, including Hama, where Turkey is believed to be expanding its influence. Analysts say the Middle East is entering a new phase of polarization, with Syria potentially becoming a proxy battleground for regional and global powers. Well, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow S News and stay tuned for our future videos. If you enjoyed this update, please subscribe, like and drop a comment.